Thanks, everybody. Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Ricky Camilleri. Our next guests are the stars and director of the new film, White Boy Rick. It tells the true story of Ricky Wershe Jr., the youngest FBI informant ever at the tender age of 14. Let's take a look at the trailer.
How come we stay, Dad?
Man,
Detroit.
son, lion don't leave the Serengeti. And besides, it's gonna be our year. I can feel it.
You realize you're the worst father ever.
I'm not gonna let you ruin your life, Don. No drugs in the house. Everything's fine.
Not fine.
You're fine, Mom's fine. Don, you're fine.
Gonna let her talk to you
I'm going to the goddamn house. Ray, stay out of it. Put some clothes on, will ya? We're going for custard.
Y'all know who my dad is, right? Y'all know what he sell?
Hey, I know your broke ass daddy. What you said your name was?
Rick.
Hey, White Boy Rick.
You got some balls coming here like you did. You should come out of skating roll sometime. But not like this. Look like you robbed a Kmart or something.
You good, Rick. You wanna move weight? You come to me.
My dad finds this, he'll kick my ass.
Just make sure he doesn't find it then. Break it down. The dime robbers. Get yourself a crew and offload it. Before long, people know you legit.
It's Ricky. He won.
You're gonna get in too deep, and then they're not gonna let you out.
You talk, I'll know.
8 pounds, 14 ounces. Such you weighed when you were born. First time I looked in your eyes, I knew you were gonna be bigger than me. I knew your life was gonna be bigger than mine.
Look at this, Dad. Look how we're living. Let's hustle big. I know the players, and I know the game. Hey, come on, Dad. I can do this. And we can do this. We can fix our lives and be a family again. What do you say?
Ask yourself this. Would you believe a 15-year-old kid was working for the federal government?
But he was.
Whoa!
Shit. Hey.
What? You all got him?
Everybody from White Boy Rick, please welcome Jonathan Majors, Bel Powley, director Yann Demange, and introducing Richie Merritt. Hey. Guys, thanks so much for being here. Congratulations on this film. A movie that I was just telling you, I was really surprised by. It's a really intimate, beautiful look at family, incredibly well directed and acted. I love your directing style going into this. It's never overtly polished because you're dealing with a very rough and tumble world, but at the same time, it does have a beautiful sheen to it, incredible shots, great production design, and all of your performances are wonderful. So now we'll get to the questions. Okay, great.
Thank you.
Where did you find this guy? Where did you find him?
Richie Merritt. Baltimore, waiting outside his principal's office. Yeah, our scouting rep, I was a street casting as well as reading actors, professional actors. And I thought we'd better look at non-actors as well, just to find someone that might give us an authenticity that we're looking for. And the street caster was pitching the principal in the school, in high school in Baltimore. And when they walked out the office, he goes, all right, you can start with this kid here. And he's in the movie.
Were you in trouble?
Yeah.
What, can I ask what you were in trouble for?
No.
Poor decisions.
Poor decisions.
Had you wanted to act?
It was always a thought. Everything was always a thought. It was just like get my foot into the door.
I mean, this is really getting your whole body into the door with this being your first project.
My whole face.
Yeah. And what was it? Were you worried about doing it? Were you hesitant about taking on a movie where your character is the namesake of the film and you're in every shot, every scene of the movie?
I mean, it was a little nerve-wracking, but I always stayed true to myself and just let them fall in love with me. Actually, to be honest, yeah. I was just me.
There you go.
Yeah, of course you got the part. That's amazing.
He didn't even know who Matthew McConaughey was when we screen tested him. When we brought him out to workshop, he genuinely didn't know who Matthew was, so he was kind of unfazed by it.
Well, that must have been kind of a blessing, right? That he didn't know who he was.
Completely. So he just leaned into it. He just did it as, as naturally as he could. And it was great. It had a great effect on Matthew because it meant Matthew, being an intelligent actor that he is, had to adapt to Richie and had to tune into his frequency. And it's like Matthew had to be in a Richie Merritt film rather than the other way around. It was had an interesting effect on everybody actually, because.
Did you find that working with Bel and Jonathan and Matthew, all three incredible actors, that they helped you out a little bit when you had questions? Did you have questions or?
Most definitely. It wasn't necessary questions. I'm not a question asking person. I'm more of a do it. You say I'm a do it type person. So they would give me advice and ideas, and I would try to work it into it.
But I'd say we learned a lot from him. I mean, it was amazing working with someone who's not been on screen before, so he had no self-awareness about the way that it was going to come out. I feel because I've done movies when the camera's in my face, I have an idea in my head of how it's going to look. But he doesn't have that, so he just does it. His instincts are so raw. He doesn't.
There's no self-consciousness.
No.
Of how is this going to cut? What do you need from me? How am I going to look? Yeah. I mean, and you're doing stuff in this that is incredibly daring and provocative, as we see in the trailer. But not just that. I mean, you're not necessarily putting on your prettiest face in a number of scenes in this film.
That's actually a really refreshing thing to do as a woman, to not have to think about the way that you're looking in a movie. Yeah. It's really nice. But that opening scene, I was meant to have trousers, pants on, but I decided it would be funnier if I did it in my underwear. And then when we got to the day, it was raining and snowing, and Yann wanted to do it some handheld one shot thing, and it was going to take 2 days.
I was
and
you sure you want to do this?
Yeah. And I was yeah, I'll be fine. Trying to be really cool. But yeah, it was.
That scene take 2 days. 2 days to shoot.
Took a long time.
Yeah, we blocked it because initially I was going to do it in the one, but it was too complicated in the end. But it's everything as they arrive, they pull up, they go inside, they come back out all the way until the cars pull away. I kept doing it in one long take, in long passes, just to keep that energy up.
And then you cut it into a little bit more. Did you? I mean, was that one of those? What is that like as a director when you have this one-er planned, right? And then you get into the editing room and you realize that you have to start cutting your
No, but you have to pivot on the day if you're going to pivot. It was.
You realized on the day that you were probably going to have to
I was blocking it, so I was saying I wasn't necessarily shooting it to be a one-taker, but I was doing the whole thing in long real-time passes. So I might change up the angle, but I'd keep the energy going rather than because essentially it's four scenes, and. But rather than breaking them up into 4 scenes, I played all of them, I run them all the way through, continuous.
So it maintains a high-pitched energy throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, so exactly.
Yeah, it maintains momentum, especially when you're running around and screaming at each other. And it would be hard to just start that halfway through the scene.
Yeah, it's hard to stop it once you start shouting, basically.
Yeah, basically.
Well, what drew you to being in the film and playing this part?
I was actually terrified of this part. When I first read it, I was like, wow, this is an amazing script. It's an amazing role, but I'm never going to be able to do anything like that.
Why? I've seen you in a number of things, and each one is vastly different from the one before, and you're always kind of a revelation.
I think, well, thank you. But I think that playing high or drunk is a really difficult thing to do. I think it's a fine line between being over the top or just doing it wrong. So that was something that really scared me. Also, just Detroit, the 80s, it's not anything that I'm very familiar with. I feel like all the roles I've done before I've had some sort of familiarity with. But then as soon as I met Yann, I don't know, I was a big fan of his before anyway, but he made me feel more comfortable with the whole thing.
I think the idea of playing high in that fine line that you have to walk when you play high, whether or not you have to sell something, but at the same time you can't overdo it or it becomes kind of corny or hackneyed or a way that we've seen it. You don't do that. But that is a lot of the film as well, which is selling the 80s, selling the rise and fall of someone dealing and working with drugs and working as an informant, and riding this sort of thin line between doing a story that we may have seen before, but trying to do it in a completely different, intimate way. How hard is that for you? Because you're still selling this idea and selling ideas that maybe we've seen in other movies, but trying to do it differently.
Yeah, absolutely. It has, you know, the rise and fall stories and informant stories inherently have those tropes, and we're familiar with them. And, you know, at the heart of it, the story of Ricky Wershe is an incredible informant story. You know, the youngest informant in FBI history is scandalous and crazy and beyond belief, the things they did and got away with. And then the rise and fall story actually was overblown. He wasn't really a kingpin. He only dealt for about a year. But you had to tell those elements of the story in order to understand why he's still in jail and what the narrative. If you like, there are pivotal plot points that you have to explain. But I shined the light. I decided to concentrate on the family because that's what hooked me. That's what I made a personal connection to. It was a story of a family trying to survive the landscape and trying to survive, you know, corruption and bullying really, and you know, and it's corruption taking advantage of the impoverished in a way, and it's a father-son story at the heart of it. And that's what really hooked me in. And you use that as the emotional through line off of which to hang the other bits of plot that had to be explained.
Well, I think when it comes to other bits of plot, and we think of Jonathan's character, who's actually kind of the kingpin in some ways in the movie.
Very much so.
Yeah, but we're also, when we see him, he's very much concerned about family and talking about family a lot of the time and dealing with the people around him. And you even have this wonderful scene where you talk about the differences between when you get arrested by the cops and when Rick gets arrested by the cops. It's much less about the day-to-day dealings of how much the drugs cost, how much money they're going to make. Was that something that surprised you about the script when they handed it to you and said, well, he's a drug dealer?
No. I mean, I think that was one of the reasons I wanted to be involved with the story, is because one of the ways I grew up, the places I've seen, the people I know, the drug dealing aspect of it is just a means of survival. And if you survive well over time, you will become a kingpin, you know, and the kingpin is just the occupation. And then so from the occupation, I was like, that's what he is, okay? But it's not necessarily all he is. And so one of the reasons I was really attracted to it is because there was an opportunity to show this stereotype, this kingpin, but then also show what he's made out of. And I think what we tried to articulate in the film is that he's made of a deep paternal energy. He is a businessman. He's a staple of the community, you know, and he's a guardian. He does all these open-hearted things, and so that's who he is in a way. And so that was hella interesting to kind of jump into.
He's a paternal figure to Richie in many ways. You know, He's got that, and it's like humanizing all sides. What was really important for me is like at a time where it's to engage with the other point of view rather than judge. You know, there's a lot of that going on right now, and there's not a sort of an exercise in empathy. Really, just put yourselves in the Wershe's family's shoes, put yourself in the Curry's family's shoes, right, and try and understand the options they have in the landscape they're living in, and the choices they're making, and without judgment, and trying to get to grips with what it was like to live in Detroit in the mid '80s, and what it's like to live in, you know, abject poverty. Really.
What what scene were you most worried about filming that made you the most nervous? Was there any, or was every day for you just like, I keep it real?
To be honest, like I was very new to it, so I didn't know how it was gonna go. Like with the crashing scene, I thought like somebody was actually gonna hit us.
Are you nervous we were gonna crash the car for real?
Yeah.
That's the first I've heard it.
I didn't think that was how it was gonna go, but yeah, I thought we was gonna hit the car and actually swerve out. So I say that was the most nervous one.
Wait, but wasn't that done with stunt doubles?
No, that was in a car. I mean, yeah, swerving that
car. Some stunt doubles, and him and Matthew were in the car that was swinging, sort of spinning rig.
Wow.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
It was fun.
Great.
I was
scared
that's
for it.
great.
I was like, I didn't know.
The full take of those shots are amazing. You'll see them both. They're like,
really freaked out.
Cursed how the times.
So your biggest fear was that they were going to crash the car with you in it?
Yeah.
That's my favorite one.
Because like, I knew I was going to be my own stunt double. Like I knew I was going to do my own stunts, but I was like, another car accident. I ain't ready for that.
But not any of the emotional scenes where you had to kind of.
You know, I was like, I trusted myself at that time. You know, when we shot the emotional scenes, it was more like the more end of shoot. So I was like, started getting more trust and feel for myself. So I was like, getting real used to my emotions.
So you didn't know who Matthew McConaughey was at first, but when you found out you got the part, you went back to school or told friends that you were doing a movie with Matthew McConaughey. What did they say?
I just said I was doing a movie. Like, I didn't even tell him I was doing the movie until I left. Like, everybody else said, oh, yeah, he out shooting the movie. Because, like, I don't want people to know about me. I don't want people to know what's my next move. Like, I don't want people to know until it come out.
It's a pretty good attitude to have. Yeah.
How do I go to the next question from that? That is amazing. When you have him and Matthew in a scene, how do you find that you are oscillating between directing two people in very different ways, or are you guys all kind of still?
There's always an element. That's very often the case. You can have 2 or 3 or 4 players in a scene that have different approaches. You just like try and get a temperature read on what best. You don't impose your process on them. You get a read on what's the best way to approach each one of them. To a certain extent, yes, but really I'd focus. If you like, Richie became the metronome of those scenes. He'd sort of set the rhythm of the scenes, and Matthew would he'd tune into his frequency and sort of pivot and react, and then like you could see he'd help Richie along. It's really interesting to watch. It's the most unique sort of experience I've had in terms of shaping a performance with someone.
Bel, what about you and working with Richie? I mean, I wonder if, like, oftentimes actors, they will sort of do scene analysis and craft things beforehand and run lines and figure out where each other are coming from beforehand. Is that something that you could feel like you could do with a non-actor, or did you still do that?
No, we didn't, but that's also just because Yann's style of directing is very, like, spontaneous and quick. We never really came in and sat down and chatted about the scene, and it wasn't traditional, like you rehearse the scene, you block it, you go away, light it. It was very much handheld. We'd go in, you'd say, okay, action. You'd kind of rehearse it as you're shooting it and collaboratively work out the shape of the scene together, which I think was probably great for you, Richie, having not acted before.
Is that how you always work? Is that a kind of like, let me capture as much footage as I can?
No, not always. I mean, for this one, I did a similar approach for Top Boy because I had a lot of non-actors. And because this is period, sometimes, the blocking of the scene and letting them go through the works, then going off to get hair makeup done and then coming back, it just a kind of like, it slows the process down. I wanted this to feel quite experiential and visceral, even though it's like dialogue heavy. I just wanted it to be felt like you plonked into the middle of it. So it wasn't one where I wanted to really block it, analyze, do a sort of scene analysis, because Richie more often than not was at the heart of each scene, and I didn't want him to be in his head about it. So if you like, because I cast Richie, I just went with a certain approach that I think would suit him, and then everybody else slotted in and sort of vibed with it.
It's interesting that what's said in the film is like, they're lions. Rick Sr. said it to Rick Jr. that they're lions, and it kind of felt like that on set. Like we were all, especially when this handheld, the director's running, we were all kind of hunting for the scene, and Richie added a certain spontaneous element on how to hunt. I think actors that come from certain backgrounds or people who have made films before have a way of like, this is how you go at it, right? And what it felt like with Richie every day at work, it was like, okay, we know what we have to get. We knew what we had to get to make the day, to tell the story. And then we all just ran at it in our own ways. And so he brought an amazing skill set to it. McConaughey brought his skill set, Bel, myself. Everyone involved were bringing their own skill set to capture the scene. And then when it was cut, when it was bought, it was bought. And that gave a real energy to the whole piece.
So it kind of comes out where everybody at the end of shooting a scene feels like they've all got it, versus the director just saying, okay, I've got it. Everybody being like, okay, I guess so. Everybody kind of felt like they were in on the run.
It was times where like he would say that he bought it and we would just keep going. Like we would shoot another one just because we felt like it.
Yeah.
It was just like, style and content go hand in hand. It's not, you can't just have one approach or one style for each story. I felt the first couple of weeks is like almost like feeling out the process, and because I did start blocking. Actually, the first week I was blocking and then sending people to the works. And it became very clear to me this was creating the wrong energy for the shoot, and actually we should go something a bit more improvisational and a bit more sort of a bit more
Off the top.
Off the top. There you go.
Yeah.
Can
You got me.
This is kind of maybe a deep in the weeds question, but when you're a director and you start shooting a movie one way, and after a week or two you decide that maybe that's not the right way that you should be going about it, and you're going to change it, how do you communicate that to everybody while at the same time making sure that they still know that you're pretty on top of the vision that you're laying out?
With this one, I was editing as I go along, which I often do, you know, and we did it on 71 as well. But 71, though some of it's handheld and visceral, I was we knew what we were going to do. There was more precision to it. With this, it was like there was an element of improvisational filmmaking to it, because you know we'd have to lean into a lot. There was a lot of non-actors. Richie wasn't the only non-actor in the film. There were a lot of first-timers, and you know there's no point in having a grand plan about getting married to a shot or a visual idea. I'd react. I'd try and create the right circumstances for them, and put it up on its feet, and just start capturing it, like they said, and you start whittling it down. You know, you start chipping away at the clay until you think you've got the scene, and you don't try not to make them self-conscious about what you're doing.
Did you guys shoot on location in Detroit?
No, we shot in Cleveland.
Oh, you shot in Cleveland.
2 days in Detroit.
Yeah,
Wow.
2.
What did it feel like shooting in the locations that you guys shot? Because it's all on not maybe on location in Detroit, but none of it looks like it's in a studio anywhere.
Yeah, I think our set decorator was just on point. I mean, I can speak for the skating rink, the garage where the Currys hung out. Like, it felt lived in. Everything felt lived in. And it was, you know, the Curry Road was hard, and it was tough, and it was, it smelt like gasoline. It felt like Detroit. It felt like the Motor City. You know, it felt like we all had a little oil under our nails, and that just helps. You know, you don't have to fake the funk. It's like if you hit this table, it's gonna hurt. If you put this coat on, if you do these things. The world is already there. So, I mean, hats off to them for sure.
And the Wershe house, we had the whole house. Like, every single room was like, it all existed. So it meant that if there was a scene that we were going to shoot in one part but it didn't quite work, we could just move it to another part of the house.
So you could kind of just walk around this house whether you were shooting or not, and it felt like you were in.
We had our own bedrooms. Like, it was all there.
Had my own room. I chill in my room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you couldn't find Richie, you'd often find him. Even if you're off the road.
I'll be playing the little hoop basketball, little hoopy hoop.
I mean, the way we were shooting, you needed to be 360. It wasn't like, oh, this is the shot. We just need that wall. It was like you have to give them space to just use the whole room. You know, so you have to. And it's the same when you're in the road. So it's quite a lot of work on the production design side.
The production design is beautiful. I think I said that before, but you can really see it and feel it when you're watching the movie.
Stefania Cella, the production designer, amazing Italian production designer.
Let's get some questions from our audience. Who's right here? You, sir.
Okay. What was the most challenging part working on the movie in the way that you filmed it?
The most challenging part, I guess it was more often than not when there's a lot of players in the scene, a lot of non-actors. It's like often, you know, spending more time like finessing it and performances and the blocking before you start shooting. I might start shooting early, but really, you're only starting to get it when you're the 7th or 8th take in and it's starting to cook. So sometimes it was time, really. It's more time consuming to get it there. Pleasure.
Next question.
Hi. I guess I have a question for all of you. I'm wondering from the actors if there's like a certain type of role that you've always wanted to play, like what your dream role would be. And for you, Yann, I'm wondering if there's like a certain type of movie that you have always wanted to make.
I want to play a little bit of everything. I want to play a doctor. I want to play a killer. I want to play the person who died first in a horror movie.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, I want.
That's one of the best answers I've heard.
Yeah.
No one wants to play the one that dies first in the horror movie.
I want to be the one who's died,
one.
over dramatic. Fall out over little stuff. Yeah.
I don't have like a particular role that I've always wanted to play. Sorry, it's a really boring answer. I guess just as a woman, just making sure it's always like fleshed out, like 3D roles that make sense.
Yeah.
You got a lot of scripts that are not that.
Yeah, believe it or not, still you do.
You get what you
Getting better though.
And I guess for me, I mean, the dream role is just the next role. You know,
Oh, yeah, I like
whatever
that.
the role is like that's literally what I will be dreaming about and trying to wrap my mind around. So I mean, it's just as an actor, it's just a blessing to work. Hell yeah.
No
you
cap.
You can have that, Richie. You
No
can have
cap.
that.
I'm taking that. I'm taking that home with me.
Reading that out, the next one.
Right.
I don't actually have the dream movie. I'd like to turn my hand at lots of different things. I kind of often now I feel like the dust is settling on a particular cycle of stuff I was into, and boys, trying to find a sense of tribe and looking for their sense of place in the world. And I've kind of done 3 things in a row like that, and I feel like I want to go somewhere different now, and almost aesthetically different. I've just shot a pilot for HBO called Lovecraft Country with Jordan Peele and J.J. Abrams executing it, and we shot that completely differently. And Jonathan Majors is in the lead. He rocks it.
Did you cast him in that after having worked with him on this?
Yeah, absolutely. He was incredible in this, and I absolutely wanted him for the pilot, and he did an incredible job. We literally just wrapped like a week ago or something, off a month of night shoots. Yeah. But that was. I'm a bit like Jonathan. It's like whatever grabs me next is my thing. I do almost any genre as long as I connect to the human beings, to the heart of the story, and the themes.
Do you have a film or filmmaker as a filmmaker that you always return to, or someone that you remember as kind of the moment where you're like, oh, this is what I want to do?
Yeah, I mean, it was Carpenter when I was a kid. Wong Kar-wai when I started to really get into it. Chungking Express really blew my mind, the way the camera behaves. And Jack Audiard is probably one of the contemporary masters I admire the most repeatedly. And there are plenty more. Paul Thomas Anderson. There's so many beautiful films, but Audiard I keep returning to.
One more.
Hey, my question is for you, Richie. Given that your background and coming from being in school as a student to now being in front of the big screen, I'm sure, like, when you decided to tell people in your life, they were like, it came a bit of a shock to them. So how do you feel they have supported you throughout this journey, like your family and friends?
How can I put this? My family's always been there, and like my close friends, they always been there no matter what I did. Got into trouble, made people believe in me. They just always been there and always told me to do what I want, do what I think's best for me. And they never judge me off of what I did. They judge me off of who I am, because they know who I am and as a person. They know I got a good heart. They know that I care. But it's just like showing other people, because like you gotta get people like to see you for who you are, and it's hard in the 2000s. It's 2018. You got a lot of petty crime and petty people out today, so it's like hard to show and express yourself in this generation.
Thank you.
Have your friends been supportive?
Oh yeah, most definitely. Shout out Austin.
Yeah? In high school?
Yeah.
What did they think? What did your friends and people at school think when the trailers started coming out?
Oh, I see you on TV. I see you like 5 times on TV. Stuff like that. They be going crazy. They always go crazy.
Not like it looks cool. Congratulations. Just like I saw you.
Yeah. I mean, it's like all right. You can go watch it. It's just like thank you.
Guys, congratulations. A really great movie. Fantastic work from everybody all around. It opens this week, September 14th, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. White Boy Rick. Everybody, please give them a huge round of applause. Let's hear it.
Thank you, everybody.